Yesterday, the Pittsburgh Penguins made a massive splash acquiring the reigning Norris Trophy winner Erik Karlsson in a blockbuster 3-team deal from the San Jose Sharks. So today I thought it would be fun to take a look at the Pittsburgh Penguins post-Karlsson trade, go over their offseason a little bit, and kind of preview the team heading into the 2023-24 season. I plan on doing a lot of these season previews before next season actually begins. I don't want to make any promises that I will do one for every single team, but I'm going to try my best. Let me know down below in the comments which team you'd like to see a video like this on next. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and you want NHL content just like this all year round. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started by taking a look at an overview of the Penguins 2022-23 season before we look ahead. The Penguins finished with a record of 40, 31, and 11 for 91 points, which was good for 5th in the Metro Division, obviously just missing out on one of those final 2 wildcard spots, ending their streak of 16 consecutive seasons with a playoff appearance. It was certainly strange watching the 2023 Stanley Cup playoffs without them featuring the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm only 22, so they've been in the playoffs as far back as I can remember. What would I have been, 5 or 6 the last time they missed? Looking at some of the Penguins team stats from this past season, overall just very mid, 16th in terms of goals for per game, 19th in terms of goals against. The special teams, middle of the pack as well, the 14th ranked power play in the league and the 16th ranked penalty kill. Face-off percentage, they were top 10 in the league, but I don't really feel like that's a stat that you should look too much into. I don't think it affects play as much as some people may think. Shooting percentage just 9.3%, 25th in the league, so they got a lot of shots, but the finishing ability, from top to bottom in the lineup just wasn't there. The depth really wasn't fantastic this past season for the Penguins. I think there's a lot of things that factored into them missing the playoffs this past season for the first time in 16 seasons. Obviously, a lot of people are going to point to, the core is getting older, but from those older core guys, they still got fantastic production. Sidney Crosby, elite. Malkin was still great. Same goes for Letang. So I definitely think it wasn't really all on those guys. Again, like I mentioned, the depth really wasn't there consistently throughout the year. The goaltending was fine. I don't think it was, necessarily a strong point for the Penguins this past season, but I don't think you could also point at that and say that's the reason they missed the playoffs. After getting a nice big extension, I do feel like the Penguins are probably expecting Tristan Jarry to have a little bit better of a season this year, though, than he did last. I feel like the biggest thing, though, was just other teams in the Metro are getting better. Young teams like the New Jersey Devils, obviously, they had a massive breakthrough season. The New York Rangers are a powerhouse, and it's expected to stay that way for a while. The Carolina Hurricanes have been, a perennial top team in the Metro Division for a long time now. So for an older team like the Pittsburgh Penguins, it's probably hard to keep up with, young up-and-coming teams like the 3 teams that I just mentioned. That's last season, though. Let's now shift focus and talk a little bit about the Penguins heading into next season. First, I want to look at their 2023 offseason additions and subtractions. They have had a very busy offseason, not just in terms of player movement either, also bringing in Kyle Dubas. He's running the show there now. Some of the notable players that Kyle Dubas has brought in, obviously Erik Karlsson is the big one that took place yesterday. Then you have guys like Vinny Hinostroza, Andreas Johnsson, Nola Chari, Ryan Graves, Lars Eller, Riley Smith, which I feel like was an underrated addition, Alex Nedeljkovic, Rem Pitlick. And then in terms of subtractions, you have Mikael Granlund, Jeff Petrie, Jan Ruda, Casey DeSmith, Danton Heinen, Jason Zucker, Brendan Dumoulin, Nick Bonino, Dmitry Kulikov, Drake Kajula, and Josh Archibald. That's a lot of names on the screen. This is a big roster turnover for the Pittsburgh Penguins. The team on opening night is going to look a lot different from the team that we saw to finish out this past season. So did the Penguins get better in my eyes looking at these additions and subtractions? Obviously, nobody that they lost even comes close to being on the level of somebody like Erik Karlsson. Really the only players of consequence that I feel like, they might miss a little bit. Jason Zucker, solid middle 6 winger, but I honestly feel like you get a little bit of an upgrade bringing in somebody like Riley Smith. I sort of view Ryan Graves as the Brendan Dumoulin replacement. You lose a bit of center depth with Granlund and Bonino leaving, but you replace a lot of that with guys like Eller and Pitlick and Achari. So overall, I do feel like on paper, the Pittsburgh Penguins roster got better, especially when you factor in, acquiring a game-breaking offensive defenseman like Erik Karlsson. One thing that I will say is a little bit concerning. This is a tweet from producer Drew on Twitter. The Penguins were the only team with an average age over 30 at the end of last season. Since then, they've added 5 more players over 30 in Erik Karlsson, who's 33, 34-year-old Lars Eller, 31-year-old Noel Acciari, 32-year-old Riley Smith, and 30-year-old Matt Nieto, who I actually forgot to put on the additions list. They currently have just 3 forwards under 30, plus Gensel is on the LTIR. It's a bold strategy to go so heavy on experience, but if it works, it could change the mindset of many other teams going forward. So the Penguins are certainly an older team, and they got even older this offseason, and the NHL seems to just continue to get younger year after year, so it is definitely a bold strategy. That being said, guys like Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Karlsson, who are, all over the age of 33 at the very least, I think Karlsson's 33. All of those guys are, aging like fine wine. All of them are coming off of a strong season, but this team definitely kind of gives me like Last Dance vibes. If you guys ever saw that documentary on the Bulls on Netflix, it's very good. But looking at the ages of all the players on the Penguins roster, it's hard to imagine that their competitive window is going to be open for, a very long time. But let's take a look at some of the projected lines heading into next season. These are courtesy of dailyfaceoff.com. Don't take these lines as gospel. It's more so just to look at their depth chart and what the lines could potentially look like. First line, Gensel, Crosby, Raquel, but like I mentioned, or like producer Drew mentioned in that tweet, Jake Gensel is currently on the long-term injured reserve. He is going through, the recovery process from ankle surgery. I believe that said he's going to be reevaluated in 12 weeks, and this was just a couple of days ago, so you have to imagine he's at least going to miss some time to start the season. Hopefully all goes well throughout his recovery process, though, and he's able to play the majority of the season because Jake Gensel is the best winger on this team. If healthy, that is a fantastic top line, assuming Sidney Crosby is still, playing at the level he did this past season. Second line, Riley Smith, Evgeny Malkin, Rust, same goes for that line. That's looking like a strong second line. Rust is coming off of a bit of a down season, but we know he's capable of being, around a point per game player. Again, assuming Malkin is at least close to the level he played at this past season, that's a deadly top 6. Third line, you have O'Connor, Eller, and Jeff Carter, and then Nieto, Pitlick, Noel Acciari. I'm assuming Acciari is probably going to play center, though, and then some extras that could, potentially fight for roster spots. Vinny Hinostroza, Andreas Janssen, and Alex Nylander. If healthy, the top 6 looks really good. Not sure how much depth scoring you're going to get from that bottom 6, especially if, injuries start to happen and guys like Hinostroza, Janssen, and Nylander come into the lineup. They could definitely face some problems, but overall, that looks like a forward group that can certainly do some damage. Now shifting focus to the blue line, you have Ryan Graves and Chris Letang, Marcus Pettersson and Erik Karlsson, and then P.O. Joseph and Chad Ruedel. Some extra defensemen, Ty Smith, Will Butcher, Mark Friedman, guys that could fight for roster spots, guys that could fill in with injury, stuff like that. In net, you have Tristan Jarry as the very clear starter, and then you have Alex Nedeljkovic and Magnus Hellberg, a duo that was with the Red Wings this past season. Obviously, this past season was kind of a disaster for Alex Nedeljkovic in Detroit. He spent time in the AHL. He's looking to bounce back for sure. I wouldn't even say he's the clear backup for the Penguins. I think Hellberg could honestly push him for that backup position, so should be some good internal competition there. The Penguins are definitely banking on a bounce back season from Nedeljkovic, though, or a breakout season from Hellberg, because if neither of those things happen and then Jarry goes down with an injury, things could turn, ugly pretty quick. In terms of the blue line overall, assuming that Karlsson and Letang are still close to playing at the same level they did this past season, obviously not expecting Karlsson to put up 100 points again, but you get what I'm saying. As long as we don't see those guys' game fall off a cliff next season, then that top 4 does look very strong. The bottom pairing, not so much, but I don't think, the bottom pairing of your team is going to be the end-all be-all. When injuries start to happen, though, and then guys like Ruedel and Joseph have to slot in the top 4, that's when things can start to get ugly. But again, teams go through injuries all year. It's not just something that would be affecting the Penguins. So overall, where I'm at with the blue line is kind of where I'm at with the forward group. I like the top 6 in terms of forwards, have my questions about the depth, and it's the same with the blue line. I like the top 4, but have my questions about their depth back there. And really, same goes with goaltending. I mean, Jarry, we know he's capable of being an above-average starter, but the backup situation, who knows what that's going to look like. I think the Penguins are a fascinating team heading into the 2023-24 season. I'm very intrigued and interested to see how they do. I'm excited to watch this team play. As far as my expectations go for the Pittsburgh Penguins, I really can't see them finishing ahead of, one of the Rangers, Devils, or Hurricanes. If they do make the playoffs, I feel like it's going to be in one of those wildcard spots. Now, that's not to say if they squeak in, they can't do any damage. I mean, look at the Florida Panthers this past season. They only finished 1 point ahead of the Pittsburgh Penguins during the regular season. They just beat them out for that second wildcard spot, and obviously the Penguins made it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. So if you look at it from that perspective, the Pittsburgh Penguins aren't all that far away from being a legit Stanley Cup contender. And let's be honest, the NHL is one of the most unpredictable major sports in the world. Anything can happen. This team could click beautifully, or it could be a complete disaster. Who really knows? I'm definitely expecting the Penguins to be really competitive, just like they were this past season, to be a good team, and I would not be shocked at all if we see them get back into the playoffs. But those are pretty much all of my thoughts on the Penguins offseason. season and kind of where I stand on the team heading into the 2023-24 season. As always, I want to know what you guys are thinking, especially if you're a fan of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let me know how you feel and where you currently stand when it comes to your favorite team down below in the comments. What are your expectations for next season, predictions, hot takes, all that kind of stuff? Let me know how you're feeling down below. If you guys enjoyed this video and you want to see more season previews like this heading into next season, be sure to leave the video a like. That is the best way to show your support. And most importantly, if this was your first time checking out the channel and you want more NHL content just like this all year around, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you all soon.